Hey, this is Ron with the Radiologic Technologist.com blog and YouTube channel. I've been fiddling with my camera for like 5 minutes. I can't stand that I'm kind of off to the side, but I'm just gonna get going because I've got work to do. And today we're going to talk about toxic work environments. We've all had them. They vary from reason to reason on why they're toxic. Excuse me, but we need to talk about it. I've got a comment on our Facebook group. If you haven't been there, you should sign up. There's a lot of interesting topics, candid discussions. You can even hide behind anonymity if you need to, which is part of what we're going to discuss today, because you can't always speak up, right, when you're at work and somebody's being a jackwagon. And so I'm going to share some toxic environments I've been in, and then I'm going to tell you how I handled them, how I didn't handle them, how they caused me future problems. And then maybe we can discuss the perspective of what you should do from administrative side versus the tech side. So going way back to the beginning of my career, when I came out of x-ray school, I had two jobs. It wasn't that hard to find a job. And I always say, if you do a good job at your clinicals, you should be able to get a job fairly quickly. But I took a PRN gig at a hospital that I'd worked at prior. And it was just to fill in hours. It was just for extra hours. And maybe a little bit of it was to be on the radar there in case something came open. But I was pretty satisfied with what I already had. And so, I mean, a big part of my motivation was just make as much money as I could early on in life. So maybe I wouldn't have to work as hard later in life. And so I took this PRN gig in the Phoenix metropolitan area at a facility that I had worked at prior. So I knew the facility, but I didn't work in radiology. I worked in the lab, and I loved it in the lab, and I loved the people, and it was a great environment. And I worked in the ICU for a while as a tech while I was going to school as a unit coordinator type, medical assistant type tech, not a rad tech. But when I started working there as a tech in a PRN capacity, I was amazed at what a bunch of jerks worked on the morning shift. Um, I would come into work probably at about 6 in the morning or something like that. And I think for the most part, I was there to help with the morning runs, but sometimes I took some other shifts. And there was kind of one guy that sat around, and we've all seen them. There's people that like to do nothing but recant um, movie lines, just sits around and says movie lines. And anybody that knows what the movie is chuckles along, and they all have a good laugh. But anybody that doesn't know what the movie is, you're just sitting there like, what are you guys talking about? And so this guy just sat around doing stupid movie lines all shift, and imitating people. I think he had an Arnold impersonator he would do, and of course everybody would laugh along with him. And meanwhile, requisitions were printing off on the printer. And so as a new guy, I'm like, well, I don't know what he's talking about, and there's work to be done, so I'm just going to go get the work done because that's what I'm here for. And as time went by, it seemed like I was the one that would grab the work and go do stuff as everybody else just sat around. And it was toxic, and not only that they were lazy, but that the supervisor was sitting right there among them. It was a female supervisor, and she just sat there looking at her computer while everybody else sat around telling jokes and talking stories. And meanwhile, and this is a pretty big facility. This isn't a little critical access hospital. This is a large facility. And over time, I just really didn't like being around these people because they weren't very friendly to me. I can't say they ever really attacked me. I mean, I'm 6'3", 290, so I typically don't get people mouthing off to me, but I'm about as cordial as you can get, and they weren't very cordial back. And so, being younger, this was 15 plus years ago, and I didn't really feel like dealing with them. I didn't feel like trying to fit into their group because I was a PRN. I had no real, I didn't have a dog in that fight, so to speak. I was just there to make some money and go to my real job. Um, and so there came a point when they would rotate through the emergency room. They had an x-ray room down in the ED, and one tech would be assigned down there, and you had a student and a transporter. And none of them really liked to go down there for some reason. They all just like to sit in their little group and do nothing. And so I would volunteer to do the ED, because then I got to get away from them and go and enjoy my work. So I like what I do. And to get to the end of this story on how this bit me in the butt, and I would have never expected this to happen, but as I worked in the ED, they had a little intercom that I would call up to the top, to the core area, and I would say, okay, it's I don't know, 1 o'clock, or it's 15 till 1, and I'm supposed to get out at 1. Can you send somebody down to relieve me? And they'd go, yeah, we'll send somebody right down. And then 5 minutes would go by and nobody'd show up, and I'd call back up again and I'd say, hey, it's 10 till 1. I got to go. I have a job at 1:30 that I need to be at. And that was my full-time job. And they'd say, yeah. Joe Bob is on his way down right now. Well, we just got a little tied up. And I'd say, okay. And then 5 minutes till, still nobody. I'm calling again. Look, I got a job I got to get to. It's 20 minutes away. I need you to send somebody down. Yeah, we'll do that. And constantly these jack wagons were doing this to me. And it really frustrated me that they were jeopardizing my real job by being jerks at this little PRN job. And so finally, one day, they did this to me again. And it was like, I don't know, 5 after, 10 after. And I was getting worried about being late to my real job. And they had said over the intercom speaker that a certain person was already on his way down there. So I left. And the students and the transporter were there, and heard them say somebody was coming that was already on their way. And I said, sit tight. Joe Bob's on his way. I got to go, or I'm going to be late for my job. And I left. And would you believe I got called in for abandoning post, because jack wagons never sent anybody, and I left, and time went by, and because the students and the transporter heard what they said, the transporter went ahead and got the next patient, knowing that it would take 10 to 15 minutes to go get them and unplug them from their leads and bring them. And then the student was placing them on the table. And so they did that in preparation to keep patient flow going, and no tech ever showed. So the student is just sitting there waiting to perform when a tech gets there that never showed. And ultimately a physician came looking for their patient, saying, do you have my patient? They should have already been back. What's going on? And that's when the student said, well, my tech left and the other one's supposed to come and he never showed up, and I've got your patient, but I can't do anything without a tech here. And I lost my job over that situation. And it's totally my fault. It's totally my fault for leaving without waiting for somebody to get there. But it's a perfect opportunity for you guys to learn that don't let your emotions get in the way of clear thinking. And if you're having constant problems, what I should have done is I should have gone to management, and I should have said, look, first of all, these guys are just sitting on their butts and I'm doing a majority of the work. And here's the proof. Look at my numbers. Look at their numbers, because that's all tracked. Let's look at the numbers and see how many exams per hour everybody's doing. And then I should have said, they're not relieving me when they're supposed to down there, and it's jeopardizing my next job. And if a manager was worth their weight in salt, they would have done something. However, I know that the supervisor at that place was just the same type of person as the ones I'm talking about. So I got frustrated, I left, and I lost my job over it. Now, fast forward, I mean, that's bad enough. Fast forward 15 years, and I'm a quad modality tech, and I'm enjoying my career. I've been at this new hospital, the one I was working at the time that I was trying to get to. Was there for a long time, loved it. Went back to ultrasound school while I worked there and got that done. And long story short, at the end of it all, I don't know, 15 years later, that original giant hospital that I quit, that I left and they fired me for it, they were a big conglomerate hospital, and they bought the hospital I was working at. And when the big wheels finally got to turning and they started to hire all of us on somebody got to my file and it said I had been fired and they let me go. And I had been at that hospital for a long time and done a great, never had any write-ups, nothing. And this hospital let me go because of what had happened in that emergency room 15 years prior. So I'm sharing this because you have to be really careful in the world of radiology. It's a very, you'll hear it's a very small world. Radiology is a very small world. And what you do today could affect you way down the road. And I've seen these types of things before too with other people. You never know who's going to get promoted down the road or who's going to be married to who. I'm in a situation now where I applied for a radiology director position near my home and didn't even get a call. And I've got more experience than anyone around here. And I didn't get a call because the VP I would be reporting to is the husband of somebody I almost fired because of her behavior at work. So radiology is a very small community and you have to be careful what you do and what you say and how you behave, because what goes around comes around. So this whole conversation started because somebody's having problems on the job. It's a traveler. And according to what they've said privately to me, is they're being asked to address this one jerk person themselves. And that, so let me tell you how administration looks at this. Administration wants employees to square off first amongst themselves. They fully expect, and it's usually in policies as well, they fully expect that if somebody is harassing you or talking in a demeaning fashion to you or something like that, that you have to say something to them first. You have to say, look, I don't appreciate the way you're talking to me, and I would appreciate it if you stop doing it. Or I don't like the way you make me look inferior to the rest of the team in front of everybody. I would appreciate that if you have a problem with me that we talk about it in private. Somehow you have to address that person on your own, because what some people do is they go straight to the boss and they complain, and that's kind of looked at as tattletelling or passive aggressive behavior, which can be a negative thing against the person going to administration. Administration wants to see that you try to handle it like adults, and then the next time it occurs, you can say, look, boss, I went to this person when they did this and I told them I didn't appreciate it and they are still doing it. And now I'm coming to you. And you can even say in a PC way, in a polite way, and if you can't do anything about it, I'll go to your boss. Now, sometimes in our careers, we don't have the wherewithal to say those kinds of things because we have to have that job. Our lives depend on the income from that job. But I'm telling you, the sooner you can get to a place where you recognize your worth and your value, that if these people don't treat you properly, that you can go to some other hospital somewhere else and get a just as well paying, probably even better paying, because I'm telling you, there are jobs out there with the right people. There are jobs out there where people will appreciate you. And sometimes it doesn't seem that way because we get stuck in these ruts with these jackwagons who don't know how to behave, that are immature. And it's kind of like that person that talks trash. You know, for some reason, our nature is if somebody talks trash, it's easy to jump in there and start talking trash with them. And pretty soon you got this whole room of people just negative Nellying everything. And it breaks the morale of everybody down. And it's hard to be that person that steps up and says, look, you know, I don't have any problems with that person. So I don't really want to participate in this discussion of negative talking that tech or that boss or that, you know, whatever. And sometimes that's all it takes to start turning people around. Because for one thing, when you are that person that steps up and says, hey, I don't think this is the proper thing to be talking about on shift, it puts those people on notice that if they keep doing it, you might be the one to go tell the boss that they're the ones doing it. Because eventually something's going to come down where somebody's going to get in trouble, and then they're going to start looking for, well, who started this? Who started the chatter about this happening in such and such of an event? And so to this person who kind of kicked this rant, this therapy session for me off, because I tell you, I was pretty upset when I lost the job the second time because I was in my happy place. I got along with everybody that I worked with. I had been there for a long time. I was kind of at the top of the ladder. Um, it was fine where I was at. And it took me a little bit to accept that somebody who didn't even know me, because I called the HR person, and they wouldn't even really talk to me because I was trying to say, look, do you understand? Do you even know what happened back then? Because I even tried to go back then to the HR who laid me off for that ER incident and say, here's what happened. They told me somebody was coming. I had a job to get to. This happens repeatedly. And that HR person was one of those people that was just like, whatever, who cares? Who are you? There's plenty of you in the CE. We can just get somebody else. You're just a PRN. Um, and it's funny because, all these people that have treated me like I wasn't worth investigating my concerns, I made it to the system level director position, Bubba. I made it all the way to the top. So if you thought I was a sucky x-ray tech, how did I make it all the way to the system level right under the VP? So there's people out there that just don't get it. They don't know their job. They don't know what they're doing, or they don't know the value of a good tech. And that's what I'm always trying to get through to you guys is you have so much value as a tech for so many reasons. You made it through school. You paid for school. You made it through clinicals. You're on the job helping patients, and the patients love you for that. Just because some jackwagon on a shift at some hospitals being a jerk to you does not detract any of that value from you. You just have to either learn how to deal with that jackwagon or tell yourself, I'm only here permanently, and just ignore them, do your job, be as professional as you can, but understand you're going to have to probably stand up to that person at some point. You're going to have to say, like what I should have done back in those early days was when a rec came off, I should have said, well, here's a rec for a hip. And I've done the last 3. So maybe it's somebody's turn up here. Maybe one of you guys want to go do this, and kind of put my foot down. But I didn't. I guess it was kind of passive aggressive. I would just kind of take it, look at them, roll my eyes, and go do it. Right. Because I thought, well, I'm a good tech. I'm the one taking care of the patients. Didn't matter. That didn't matter at all how hard I worked there. All that mattered was that I left the job and did job abandonment, and that's all that mattered. Didn't matter who I was. Didn't matter that I'd worked there before and had a spotless record before in the lab. None of that mattered. And it certainly didn't even matter 15 years down the road when it bit me in the butt again. So just remember, if you're having problems with people at work, you've got to address it yourself first, because administration's going to kind of tisk at you if you go straight to them, because that's probably the first question they're going to ask is, well, did you tell them that you didn't like the way they were talking to you? Or did you tell them that you felt like, they're talking negatively? So you're going to have to figure out, and we can role play that. We can do some videos on that if you want. I got stuff on that. There's books on that. You can do some research, some Google search, figure out how to confront the bullies in the workplace, or the negative people, the negative Nellies, the trash talkers. But you gotta address it, and you've got to stand firm for who you are and what you believe in. In fact, that's kind of one of my favorite quotes is the greatest evil of all is a good person who does nothing in the face of evil. So try to be that guiding light as best you can. Keep doing your work like you're supposed to, but and if you get asked by management to deal with this person, that's not your job. It's not your job to you can't keep tabs on what a person does in a book. Don't get caught up in that, writing down every time today they talked about this person, and today they said they were going to shoot the foot x-ray, and then they went to the bathroom for 30 minutes. That just is toxic. It's like you're drinking the poison and expecting them to get sick. Just do your job the best you can do, and eventually it'll come around. It comes around eventually. I don't stick around to find out, but I've seen other situations where those toxic people get what's coming eventually. You focus on you and being a better you, and you get to that better place, and just know that you don't have to stay there. Jim Rohn was a big mentor of mine. And one of the things he used to say is, if you're not happy where you are, move. You're not a tree. And so, sometimes it feels that way. Sometimes you get in a small town and there's only one hospital there and you think, man, I can't work there. Where am I going to work? I have to stay there. And I did that. I'm in a little town now with one hospital and I stayed there for 5 years. And the first 4 years were really great. And then I got promoted into this position that was kind of aqueous. They didn't know what it was supposed to do or who it was really supposed to be in control of. And it was horrible. And I knew it. And I felt it. And I would go to work and go, what am I supposed to be working on today? How can I bring value to a role where the administrators don't even know what this role is supposed to do? And so that ended in chaos. But that's not going to stop me from being the excellent tech that I am, or taking the knowledge that I have and sharing it with you guys. That's life. Life is full of, I tell my kids all the time when they complain about their teachers, you're learning that there's good teachers and bad teachers. And that's going to prepare you for the day when you have good bosses and bad bosses, because we've all had those crappy bosses, these crappy coworkers, these people that, I had a guy once a long time ago that would procrastinate and leave recs, and they would stack up. And I'd come in for the night shift at 7 o'clock. And there'd be like 4 inpatients pending at 7 o'clock for routine abdomens and stuff. And he'd be like, oh, there's some stuff left I couldn't quite get to. And I used to just get so mad, and I'd go look up on PACS, and he hadn't done anything for hours. And I finally blew up on him one day, and I said, you need to get off your butt. And I didn't even use that word. I was so mad. I said, you need to get off your butt and get your job done, because it is not my job to finish your work. You need to get your job done on your shift. And he kind of looked at me like, sorry, man. And then he left his shift. And I felt better because I finally got to speak my piece, and he started picking up a little bit of the work, but he ended up getting a couple of DUIs like a ding dong, and had to do work release and do time in Tent City, and couldn't even get to his job. Then the tables kind of turned, because he had to get out of work at a certain time to report to the jail to do his weekend furlough. And I go, wait, you got to finish that. I'm not doing your paperwork. I didn't do that patient. I'm not signing off that I did that x-ray, but I got to go. Well, they should have done your crap earlier, man. Quit waiting until the last minute. And I turned the heat up on him. I'm not doing your paperwork, man. That's your paperwork. And he'd have to stay a little bit, and he'd get his feathers ruffled. But, take a stand for yourself. You'll feel better about yourself. And if you get fired for taking a stand for yourself, screw that place. Go somewhere else. There's so many hospitals. You know how bad hospitals need techs right now? We're in a huge shortage. The schools are not pumping out enough. The baby boomers are hitting the hospital system like never before. There's going to be dire needs for x-ray techs. Take a traveling gig and make $30 an hour being an x-ray tech. Go fill it out in California on a 6-week contract and make $40 an hour being an x-ray tech. Drive around, travel around, see some different states. Maybe where you're at is toxic. Maybe the school that fed all the techs to those local facilities was toxic, and that's an endemic problem right there. Get out and see the country. Try some outpatient clinics. Try an ortho clinic that's 8 to 5. You may do 50 exams, but they only take you 3 minutes each. Or work a night shift somewhere where there's no administration to house you. That's where I enjoyed the most of my career, was working night shift. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. I did x-ray, CT, and ultrasound. Loved it. Got to know all the docs, all the nurses. We'd have potlucks. It was great until a big consolidated system came and bought it. So I'll end there. This was partly therapeutic, partly answering a question I got about toxic work environments. It's life. You're going to run into it, and you're going to have to deal with it. You cannot be passive aggressive. You cannot say it will go away, because they won't. I tell my kids all the time, if a bully picks on you, you got to stand up to them right away, because if you don't, that gives them permission to keep doing it. do what you have to do. And then after you confront them, then go to your administrator. And if you don't think that administrator is going to do anything and you've gone to them, go to their boss. I guarantee you, you walk into a VP's office and say, I'm getting bullied. And I've told the bully to stop, and I've told my boss about the bully, and it's still happening. That VP is not going to let that continue. At least hopefully they don't. Again, anyway, I hope this has answered your question. Thanks for listening to me and some of my issues in the past. And hit the like button if you haven't already subscribed. I'm going to be putting out more and more videos as times go by, because I used to hold back trying to edit and make everything perfect and all that stuff. And now I'm just doing this to get my experience out there and share what I've done with you guys and what I've learned. And that, you don't need to edit that stuff. I just need to get it out there, and hopefully it benefits some of you. If it does, leave a comment, say hello, and visit my blog. Hundreds of questions answered there. And I've even got some cool podcasts. So take care. Don't hang around those toxic jackwagons.